right, let's call the meeting to order. Everybody rise for pledge of allegiance. Pledge to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're down one council person with Kate's not able to join us, but we have Josh joining us through Zoom. John's having issues with the Zoom.
So, Mr. Mayor, with regards to the agenda, staff has provided a revised agenda for the council. We have two changes from the agenda that was presented to the council previously. Item number one is we'd be adding an item under business. I consider a request for waiver of administrative permit fee. That's a request by Pastor Gordon Duell related to an administrative permit that he applied for today. And then we have swapped the discussion by council in closed meeting to make sure that all of their business is completed that anybody might be participating in before we get into the closed meeting. And then the last item is we are recommending that we pull the housing market and housing affordability item from the agenda. Council member Kate is unable to attend tonight, and staff believes that that should be a presentation and discussion that involves the entire council. So we are requesting that we remove that from the agenda.
Okay. Any other changes or questions or anything like that on the agenda?
Motion to approve the amended agenda.
Motion by Berg.
Second.
Second by Novak. So then roll call votes. Josh, you want to vote first? All in favor?
Aye.
Amanda?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Is your computer muted? Or are you muted?
Me? Yes. I am.
That was just weird. All right. Did you want to read this section?
Yes. So this is a meeting which is being held via electronic means. The city has determined that it is not practical or prudent to conduct an in-person city council meeting due to the local state of emergency and social distancing guidelines. Accordingly, the city council will participate in this meeting via an electronic meeting, and the city council meeting will be conducted under Minnesota State Statute 13B.021 at the date and time stated above. To the extent practical, members of the public may attend the meeting by utilizing the link that was publicly posted.
All right. Well, a couple presentations tonight. First one, this is impressive. We have a Parks Commissioner, Eve Zaraka, and I always feel like I pronounce that wrong, so Eve, I apologize for probably butchering your name. But Eve's retiring from the Parks Commission, and Mark has sent me a little bio that I want to read through this out loud for everybody. It's really an impressive resume. It speaks highly to all that Eve's given to the city over her time. He's been a Parks Commissioner since its inception in 2008. It's 12 years of service and rebuilding and planning the city's park and trail system. She's helped complete projects such as the shelter in Wagner Park, 2 new parks, redevelopment of the skate park, nearly 5 miles of new trails, and agreements with New Prague and Lakeville Community Ed for recreational programs. She served as the Parks Commission representative to New Prague Community Ed Advisory Board since 2012. Before her work on the merger, Eve served on the Elko Park Board from 2002 until 2008, the Joint Sewer Board from 1990 to 2006, and an Elko City Clerk from 1970 to 1974. Now, I didn't want to read those dates because I didn't want to date Eve here, but Mark insisted that I read those dates out. So, an advocate, Eve's also an advocate of summer events sponsored by the Parks Commission and New Prague Community Ed. She's donated out of her own pocket over $1,000 to those events. Her dedication and positive impact on Elko New Market's parks and trails will be enjoyed for residents for years and years to come. Eve, I can't thank you enough for all your service, and very happy to present you with a certificate of participation for your 12 years of service. Nice job, Eve.
Thank you, Eve.
Mark, you're on this call, right?
I would only add that it was really strange to have a Parks Commission meeting without Eve there. She's been there since 2008. And before that, when I was Elko administrator for about 14 months before the merger took force, Eve was on the Parks Commission there for another 6 years. So we all felt it was pretty strange not to have her there, so to speak, on Zoom here last Tuesday when we met. And she's been terrific, always prepared, and always has some good comments to make, and really has her heart and soul in the park and trail system here as well too. And really lucky to have her continue to build it. That 1970 to 74 city clerk was something I wasn't aware of till she sent me the email today. So Eve, if you have a comment or two, that I think that'd be okay, appropriate.
Eve, I think you're muted.
Okay, thank you for the kudos. That was very nice. And yeah, I've been around a while.
Well, you've earned every one of them, Eve. Thank you on behalf of the Parks Commission.
And thank you.
Eve, what are you going to do in retirement from this now? What's the next big project?
You know, I'm wondering about that.
Well, now you got plenty of time to consider, I'm sure. So whatever you do, the very best, and thank you so much for all you've done for us.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you for this.
Okay, take care.
All right, take care.
I will deliver the certificate for you, Joe, if you like.
Excellent. Okay, well, we have another proclamation as well. I'm going to read the proclamation, and then I'm going to actually turn the floor over to Councilmember Seepersod. As she'll have some thoughts. And yeah, before I read this, I want to just state this is, and for the public, this is something that I think our entire city council supports, but was an initiative of Don. This was something she felt very strongly about, or feels very strongly about, and it's something that, how can you not support it? So I'm going to read this proclamation, and what we're doing is we're declaring June 15th to the 21st as Community Connections Week in Elko New Market. Recent weeks have been witness to social unrest in Minnesota and throughout the nation. Many of the ills that do exist within society have some basis in underlying biases and prejudices, whether it be related to ethnicity, age, gender, sexual orientation, or another characteristic or identity. The strength of a community, state, or nation lie in the strength of the connections and common bonds of its citizens. Those biases and prejudices serve to undermine the sense of community, be it in a city, state, or nation. Those biases and prejudices wither in the face of knowledge of others, relationships, and common bonds. The city of Elko New Market is one of the best small towns in the state of Minnesota, and it is desired to make it an even better community, a model for the state and the nation by strengthening the bonds within the community. During the week of June 15th to the 21st, 2020, residents of Elko New Market are encouraged to be the change for a better community, state, and nation by making an extra effort to make a new connection with somebody in our community that is of a different ethnicity, age, gender, sexual orientation, or outside of your normal social group. Volunteer or help with a neighbor. And with that, I, Mayor Joe Julius, on behalf of the City Council, hereby declare the week of June 15th through June 21st, 2020 as Community Connections Week in Elko New Market. With that, That Don, the floor is yours.
So I just, I took a few minutes the past couple of days to write something that I wanted to read because I probably would have been able to sit here and talk for an hour, if not more, but I know that we can't do that. So I did just write a couple of thoughts down. I just wanted to first off start with saying that we are all not the same, but we're all created equal. And that I think it's very important for us as a small community to be a positive influence to the other surrounding communities and the smaller communities. I think it's our responsibility as residents to make sure that everyone feels welcome in the community and also to learn to appreciate the difference that each of us bring to the table to make up the community that we live in. I am very grateful for all of the people in our community, our law enforcement, our fire department, the city staff, volunteers, etc., everybody. I do believe, though, that there is always room to improve, whether it's individually or as a community as a whole, which is why I would like to encourage people to take some time to get to know the neighbors that you don't know, have the conversations with people that you normally wouldn't, and step out of your comfort zone. I always tell the boys, you need to listen, ask questions, and learn. Because after you listen, ask questions, and learn, you will realize that, yeah, we're not all the same, but we all are created equal. So that's all I just said. That's my point.
Very well said.
Thank you.
All right. All right, with that, we'll open it up to public comments. Anyone on the call? I thought I saw Commissioner Wolf. Anyone like to speak under public comment? You're welcome to do so.
Yeah, Joe, this is Wolf.
Wolf.
You hear me?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Hey, just a couple things tonight. We're just reopening the county slowly, you know, a few things at a time as much as we can. Our road projects, as I've mentioned before, are going great. We're clipping along on a lot of stuff. We're 2-3 weeks ahead on a bunch of projects right now, and so opening is going to be quicker than we had thought. So, and then the third thing is this morning on the I-35 Solutions meeting, Congresswoman Angie Craig was on, and she had talked about in the they're going to try to get a bill to get a stimulus for some road projects, and she had talked about a third lane from Lakeville in towards the city. So that's something I think that is that what you understood, Josh? Josh Berg, you there?
Yes, no, that is what I understood, or at least she highlighted it.
Yeah, so I think that's I think that's pretty positive. So, and lastly, I signed up again to run for another couple of years for commissioner, and that's all I got. Thank you.
Anyone have questions for Commissioner Wolf? All right.
Thank you.
The run. Thank you. Anyone else care to speak under public comment?
This is Gordon here.
Hey, Gordon.
And, you know, I guess I could put on my Chamber of Commerce hat. I was planning to come to the meeting, the next meeting, to give just a chamber update. But as you know, many of our activities and events have been canceled because of COVID. We've been in touch with our membership, trying to make deferred payments for businesses that were up for renewal that may be struggling, and looking forward to getting some planning done and resuming some activities in the near future, including the golf tournament with the new modified Fire Rescue Days celebration. One other update I could highlight is that we have been doing a scholarship fundraiser. Our goal is to raise $2,000 to give $1,000 scholarships to a student in the New Prague School District and a student in the Lakeville South part of the school district as well next year. And for that fundraiser, we are doing a hats off to the grad party where we'll decorate the yard for a day with pink flamingos. So if you would like to put pink flamingos in your neighbor's yard, or if you'd like to recognize a senior in a fun way, you can visit the Chamber website to do that. So we've been having some fun with that. Unfortunately, the timing of it kind of got overshadowed by riots. So it kind of flew underneath the radar for everyone. So But that will be ongoing throughout the summer. We have the flamingos and ready to make it special for our seniors.
I appreciate you guys doing that, Gordon. That's a nice touch and a nice thing to do for the graduating class that's unfortunately missing so many things. So I appreciate you doing that. Anyone else care to speak under public comment? Last call. All right, close public comment then. Move on to consent agenda. Anyone have any items on here that they'd like to pull or discuss more before we act? Okay. Then entertain a motion?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Motion by C. Prasad,
Second.
second by Novak. All in favor? Don,
Aye.
Amanda,
Aye.
Josh.
Aye.
I'll vote aye as well. Motion passes, or consent agenda passes. On to public hearings, we don't have any public hearings tonight. We have a couple general business items. First is consider the request for vacation of right-of-way.
Mr. Mayor, Renee Christensen from Community Development Department is here to give a presentation on that particular item.
Yes, the city did receive a written request, which was included in your packet. The letter that was received by, drafted by Mark and Lori Rogers, stated their wish to purchase a portion of city property that is currently dedicated as a right-of-way. It's shown in yellow here on this slide. If you can advance to the next slide. The property is located at the east end of 265th Street. It's currently a dead end in the old Elko, historic Elko part of the community. As stated, they wish to purchase the land. However, the correct mechanism would be for the city to vacate the right of way if that is the route the city would choose to take, or the city council would choose to take. If the city council determines that the land is no longer needed for public purpose, the underlying land can be vacated, and then those have to each of the adjacent property owners. We can vacate right of way pursuant to Minnesota statutes. So go ahead, Tom. Next slide. We do have a property survey on file, which is shown on the slide here. They own Rogers currently owns 2 platted lots that total a little over 15,000 square feet. The property is zoned R2, which is a small lot, residential area of the community. I did zoom in on the aerial photograph so the council could see that there is more than 28 feet between the west side of the Rogers home and the property line. So just so you could see the orientation of the house on the lot, there's room on the west side adjacent to the garage. The letter that was included in your packet did state that they wish to purchase or wish to acquire the city property so that they can build a detached garage somewhere on the property. Next slide. So this staff reviewed this with the city with the planning commission at their last planning commission meeting. One of the first thing we did was just to see if there were any existing utilities within that platted right of way. There are not. The next thing that we did is we looked at the city's long range plans, adopted comprehensive plan, and we do see on both the 2030 adopted transportation plan, the draft 2040 transportation plan, and then both the 2030 and 2040 park and trail plan, that in that general area there is a potential for a future road corridor. It's also identified as a future park trail corridor. You know, we don't know the exact alignment of those or if they will come to fruition, but they are shown on our adopted plans. Next slide. In addition, the Planning Commission noted that there is a fairly significant amount of undeveloped property adjacent to that platted right-of-way. We commonly refer to this undeveloped property as the DeGrosse property. And next slide. After the consideration of by the Planning Commission of the adopted the transportation plan, the trail plan, and the fact that there is a significant amount of undeveloped land to the north and east of that right-of-way, the Planning Commission has recommended that to the council that they would deny the request to vacate the right-of-way at this time, at least until the DeGrosse property develops and then it can be reconsidered. So at this point, the City Council is being asked to consider the request for vacation of right-of-way and the options as presented in your report, or to possibly deny the request consistent with the recommendation of the Planning Commission, or if you support the request, direct staff to prepare appropriate future action item for future council meeting.
So your mic was cutting out a little bit, Renee. So that I understand right that the basis for the recommendation of the Planning Commission was to deny based on the expected development and the need for that section to be used in relation to that development, be it trails, roads. Is that accurate?
That is correct. The possibility that the area may be needed for roads, trails, sidewalks, stormwater ponds, it's just not known at this time.
What would happen if we did vacate the easement? What would happen to that? I mean, would we be completely rewriting potential plans and future trails, I would imagine? Is there reasonable alternatives?
You reduce the city's ability, you kind of confine our ability to potentially be able to construct the street or trail within that area.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Can you go back a couple slides? Keep going. One more maybe. So is Beard Street still a street? That was the gravel road many years ago. It's gone, right?
Yeah, so that was essentially where the elevator was located and the road in front of it for access to the rail line that was there. So the city currently has the right-of-way that was associated with that former rail line that runs through that area. As Renee indicated, once the right-of-way is vacated in that particular location, what happens is it basically from the center line goes to whatever the adjacent property is. So they'd like us to square out their property and vacate it. Generally speaking, staff does not recommend vacation of rights of way until you are absolutely positively certain you will never need it in the future for either public or private utilities in the future because you can't get it back. Given that our transportation plan for a long time has indicated that there would be a connector road from the downtown into a potential development area to the north in that location, and then it might be needed again for pedestrian ways, the street itself, or potentially stormwater ponding that might be required for the construction of either of those. And not knowing what that might look like, we basically say we don't know, we might need it. If we give it up, we can't get it back, so we're not recommending that we provide it. There really isn't a specific hardship that the Rogers have identified that the vacation would fix, as you noted from the staff report. They have the ability to go around their existing house and sufficient room to build a detached garage on their property as it exists today. So there isn't, as we've identified it, there really isn't any other extenuating circumstances that would outweigh the public interest in this particular situation in staff's opinion. And the Planning Commission agreed with that rationale to the council.
Don, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I would prefer to deny the request.
Okay. Is that a motion?
Yes.
So, all right, motion by C. Prasad to deny the request.
There we go.
Is there a second? Doesn't have to be. No seconds?
Josh, you're muted.
Yeah.
I was holding the space button, or was thinking that that would work. No, I guess, and if you want a second or we wait for discussion or whatever, I mean, I'm just trying to think of where a road would actually ever go there. As I'm trying to look at everything and visualize it, and with the way that it's set up downtown now there.
Well, I think it should be noted that before it was grassed and we actually put in barriers, that was regularly used as a road, informal road by traffic within the downtown area on a regular basis. And actually, the city put up barriers to prevent traffic through that area because the residents on 265th Street were complaining about traffic volumes from the downtown businesses as it being used as an alternate access to the downtown. So even without having that development to the north, as long as access was provided, it was being used as part of the circulation in that particular portion of the community. So when you're talking about visualizing it as a road, when I started here, it was a gravel road.
We have a motion on the table from Don. Second the motion. And we can still discuss before we vote. I just wanted to get that part out of the way. It's hard to give up something that you know you're never going to get back. And you know, when we're looking at the city-owned property or city-controlled property, I do get a little, I don't know, skittish about just kind of being authoritarian about it. Not, I think if someone comes to the city with a reasonable request, it's reasonable for us to accommodate that request and make sense and it's in the best interest of all parties. I think we should seriously consider it. The development of that property, nearby property, will be a huge development in the market when it happens. I think we are taking chips off the table by vacating the right of way. And it seems as though there's an alternative means for the property owners to accomplish what they are hoping to accomplish. That's my position, and that's why I seconded this.
Same position, which is.
Okay, Amanda, Josh, do you have any other comments before we vote?
I'm looking at the Google map of it, and I'm still stuck on what was the gravel road and why that wouldn't be an option for a road. Is that further east than that right of way?
Mm-hmm.
Is that off the table?
Well, the thing is we don't know where the alignment of that road will need to be. We don't know what might be desired or required from a design standpoint for pedestrian ways. So we're talking trails, sidewalks, those types of items. And anytime you create a surface, you need to have stormwater drainage areas to be able to handle it. So with the construction of that road, you may need to have stormwater ponding. So when you're thinking of what the right of way that may be required for the road, just don't think of curb to curb. Think that might have to move around for a variety of reasons, but also remember that you need to have right of way outside of it, potentially for utility and rights of way. And then you also may need stormwater ponding and other facilities outside of that yet again. What it really comes down to is the Planning Commission felt that it's just premature. Once that development occurs to the north, we know that puzzle piece has been put in place and what might be required in that area. So saying no at this time isn't a forever no. It's just saying this isn't the recommendation is this is not the point in time to vacate it. We need to know fixed points around this area and determine what's actually going to be required in the future. And then in the future, there might be the ability to vacate it if there isn't a need for that right away.
I appreciate what you said, Joe. Not that I didn't appreciate what you just said, Tom. But I appreciate said Joe to make me think about another angle to this, and I would have never thought about that. So yeah, no, I totally support the denial at this time.
Okay, so let's call for a vote. I'll vote first. I vote in favor of the motion to deny the request. Don?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
It's all on you, man.
Well, I don't know that everything matters.
Your vote always matters.
I'm gonna vote no.
You're gonna vote no. All right. Okay, passes 4-0. Oh.
3-1. She said no.
Oh, you said no. Oh, my mistake. I'm sorry. I thought. Passes 3-1. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Next item. Consider request for waiver of administrative permit fee.
This is fairly straightforward. This was a late add to the agenda, but given the circumstances, it was staff belief that the council would be supportive of that. Essentially, Crossroads Church is now able, based on their leadership, to gather in spaces and meet in a non-remote fashion again. Unfortunately, in Elko Market, as the council is aware, there's a very limited number of community meeting spaces. And for their purposes, there's really only two. It's either the elementary school or the library community room. Both of those spaces are currently unavailable. And so Crossroads Church has looked for other meeting venues that might work. Given we're in the warm months of the year, they've actually received permission from Frederickson, from the Elko Express Frederickson Field, to hold their services there. It's a venue that already has sound, it already has covered stadium seating, and because of its size, they're able to do all the appropriate social distancing, et cetera, that would be required under the executive orders from the governor's office. Staff has determined that it can be handled via an administrative permit, so there isn't a need with the timing and everything to come to the council and notices that we have through other event permits that we have. However, Pastor Gordon has requested that the city either reduce or waive the $250 fee associated with the administrative permit. Staff believes that if the council is so inclined, a waiver or reduction of the fee could be justified based on our current circumstances related to COVID. This is a situation where they are having to make extreme adjustments to what they're able to do because of the COVID situation and availability of facilities. In some ways not dissimilar from allowing expanded service and seating areas for bars and restaurants that we've recently talked about. Two, they are a local nonprofit organization within the community, and through this whole process, whether it's executive orders from the governor's office or locally, providing opportunities for worship for individuals is part of that health and well-being for citizens in our community, and so this continues to do that. So if the council wanted to provide that flexibility, staff believes that the council could provide a waiver reduction in the fee as a one-off under the current circumstances without creating issues with potentially future precedents, et cetera.
Pastor Gordon.
Yes.
Before we start discussing, did you have anything you wanted to add?
You know, I just thank you, Tom, for all that that you have shared. You know, Crossroads Church has always appreciated being able to work with the city, and as Don was noting with the community connections, I think it's very appropriate. You know, I think you just gave me some material for my sermon too this coming Sunday. I'm just talking about how important that is. And so, you know, we certainly recognize that this is kind of unprecedented times that we've been in. Maybe not the ideal on the timing, you know, but I think all of our businesses have been trying to figure out how do we make our business plans work and how do we make this feasible. So I certainly appreciate the special consideration and that ability to work together.
So can we make a motion?
You can make a motion whenever you'd like.
Motion to approve the request for waiver of administrative permit fee.
We have a
Is that what a
motion.
motion is?
A motion by Seeperson and a second by Novak. Any anyone want to add comments, or Josh, you have anything on this?
No, fully support it.
I'm for it too. My only concern is just precedence, but I think this is an extenuating circumstances. So, and I'm glad that the city was so accommodating and looking at waiving this fee. This wasn't even a council discussion. This was just staff coming to us and saying, this is what we think is right. So, Tom, I appreciate your effort on that. And Gordon, I appreciate you, everything you do for our community. So with that, let's vote. Novak.
Aye.
Berger.
Aye.
Sipsa.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Passes 4-0. Right. Added right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on to reports. Administration.
The only item I have for council under that is just a discussion regarding our public meeting format. As council knows, with the COVID situation, we have closed our public meetings to the public. Although the council has started meeting in the same room as a means of facilitating smoother meetings with the majority of the council here, we are still closed to the public. Technically, under the executive orders, we can continue to operate meetings as we normally had, but it had been the recommendation of the council, and the council had agreed up to this point that in the spirit and intent of the executive orders, that until we could accommodate or the social gathering limits were raised to the point where we could hold meetings normally, we would continue to be closed to the public. Most recent executive order has increased normal social gatherings for groups, non-family members of up to 25, and they are allowing various types of venues to have up to 250 people with appropriate social distancing, et cetera, in place. So we felt it would be an appropriate time to come back to the council and talk about our public meeting formats and how we want to approach it. Now, we do have our own local executive declaration of emergency. We can make our own decision, which is right for Elko New Market, but given that the directives from other agencies are indicating that you can have larger groups and gathering spaces, we did want to have this discussion with council.
Thank you, Tom. Who wants to talk first?
I'll just say I don't have strong feelings either way, so.
Okay.
I don't either. I think that if people can make their own decisions, if we want to hold the meetings public, then let them come and make their own decision if they want to attend.
I tend to feel the same way. However, and we were talking about this, Tom and I talked a little bit about this late last week after the governor had kind of opened things up a little bit more regarding this meeting tonight. I wanted to make sure, I wanted to keep the meeting format for tonight the same as it had been in previous meetings. Because I think if we want to make the decision to open up the meetings to the public and allow access, I want all of us to be on board with that. Now, Kate's not here, so we won't speak for her. I don't know, in conversations I've had with her, she hasn't expressed any concerns, but maybe she feels differently, I'm not sure. Josh, I know you're joining us remotely. What are your thoughts? What are your feelings on this?
Yeah, no, I think, I appreciate the discussion, and I appreciate having it prior to making any changes. I think I am either fortunate or unfortunate to be in the situation that I am in, to maybe to see the healthcare side of things and work in the field where, it's hitting hard, and it's not apparent or visible or in the top of mind of many folks in our community unless they see somebody or know somebody with the situation. So I'm extra sensitive to just what's going on, and then working in the field that I work in and working with the vulnerable folks that I work with. We have taken really not conservative, but taken precautions to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to protect, those that don't have the choice or can't always choose to stay in or not expose themselves. I mean, we're fortunate where we have that luxury and that ability to do that. And I think, I guess I still, knowing that the situation isn't over, and knowing that we'll start to see here now over the next handful of weeks how things change, things start to ebb back towards the increasing infections and different things like that. I mean, I guess I would err on the side of caution and conservatism before we move too quick. And then I guess my question would be, as we open things back up, are we going to be taking the proper precautions, whether they're required or not, and whether we're exempt or not, to make sure that we're screening appropriately, potentially wearing masks appropriately, and really kind of following all the CDC, MDH, and various guidelines that are out there. So if we do open it back up, what is our process going to be with potentially temping people or requiring or asking for face masks? Are we going to be wearing face masks ourselves if that's the recommendation? In so many of these businesses that are opening up, they're opening up, but they're required to comply with a lot of different protocols and different things that are in place. So whether or not we're exempt because we're a city or fit into certain criteria, I think we need to be the best model, or could be the best model to I don't know, just be careful, because we don't know everybody's situation. And, there are some of us that, may have family members that are more vulnerable, or those that we work with that are more vulnerable, and we don't want to expose potentially to some of this stuff. And, what's been said from the governor and others is, if you can work remotely, if you can do certain things via these types of methods, that's still the recommended way to do it. And I mean, I would argue that we certainly have been effective in holding these meetings this way. And I think they have their pros and their cons, but I think at least having it as an option to continue until we really know what we don't know yet. And as the summer comes here and the dial continues to turn back and forth, I think I would err on the side of caution. Just because of all the variables that we just don't have control of and don't know. So.
Thanks, Josh. Tom, Josh brings up a good point on precautions. If we were to allow for the public to join us for council meetings, do we have any thoughts do you have any thoughts as to?
Yeah, essentially we follow the protocols we used before we closed the meetings to the public. So we would do as we're doing right now. We would provide for social distancing between seating for anybody that's up in council dais. We would arrange the seating within the council chambers, provide for social distancing. That way 6 or more feet between seating. In addition to that, we would make hand sanitizers available to individuals if they chose to use it. We would wipe down the room as we do before and after meetings and seating as well. With regards to masks, my personal opinion is that is a personal choice, whether or not you choose to do it. If you have appropriate social distancing in place, I don't know that we can require the public to wear masks. And even though we can do temperature checks as people come in, I don't know that we can mandate that they take a test check, allow us to check their temperature. And I'll check with the city attorney, but my recollection from early discussions, if the meeting's open to the public, the meeting is open to the public. We can't deny anybody access to the meeting. So that's one thing that the council has to be aware of. The other thing we should be aware of is just room size. So normally we can accommodate somewhere comfortably about 20 people in a room, maybe up to 30 or 35. Things get a little tight. And when we've had very big meetings in the past, people will spill over into the hallway. With social distancing, that does limit the actual capacity we could have in the council chambers. Now, as we know, typically our attendance consists of Commissioner Wolf, Patrick from the New Prague Times, and any applicants that are here, and maybe one or two other curiosity people. So we don't typically have large crowds. And looking at the agenda or future agendas, I don't see any items that are likely to generate large crowds. Although you never know, stuff comes up. So we would be in a pinch if we had like a large attendance. We would have to provide for things out in the hallway. We do have speakers in the hallway if people wanted to participate. But I do think there is some merit to what Councilmember Severson said. People can choose whether or not they want to attend the meeting given the circumstances. We are not proposing doing a hybrid meeting that is both on Zoom and in person. That creates some logistical issues with regards to how we would arrange all of that. So staff would recommend that if we're opening, we're just going back to the normal meeting format with normal precautions put in place.
So we can't do both.
It does create issues with regards to speakers, trying to put them on the camera as far as what they're doing, making sure the sound works. It does create issues. So what we would suggest is that if we open it up, we would tape the meetings, we put it up, we'd be back in that normal format. We would just utilize normal COVID precautions with social distancing, et cetera, in the meeting space, but we would not be holding digital meetings. We'd also, I think the expectation from staff based on our discussion internally is that whatever the council does, so shall the commissions and committees do as well, but that's not necessarily a requirement. With the possible exception of the planning commission, if they have a larger plat or something coming through, there might be more attendance. Usually we don't have a lot of attendance at either the Parks Commission or the CCC meetings. And there may be individuals associated with those organizations who do not feel comfortable coming and attending in person. Again, that being said, we have meeting spaces at City Hall where you could easily accommodate social distancing for those groups as well as any limited public that might choose to attend.
Can I ask Josh something? Josh,
Yes.
Since we wouldn't be able to do it both ways, what's your perspective on it then?
Well, I guess,
registry.
yeah, no, I mean, and I guess I would push back to say it's not that we can't do it both ways, it's we don't want to do it both ways because of logistical reasons, and I totally appreciate that. So I'm not trying to minimize that or the staff's recommendation. I think, I mean, it's definitely a choice, and I think now is an opportunity where so many of us in the private sector, in business, we are not going to go back to the normal that was normal prior to this. And I think we can start to accept that, or at least should start to kick the tires on different options and not be afraid to potentially look at a hybrid type model. Or we've talked over the years of trying to be more accessible to our community. I mean, this is an opportunity to be more accessible and to open meetings up to more people that can't make it in person to these types of things. So, and I know that, you know, I was part of getting the cameras and getting this out there. I mean, I don't know. I mean, would I be comfortable coming back in, you know, with social distancing and different things? Perhaps, but I guess I'm thinking it beyond just myself too. I'm thinking about my family members who I have to make sure that I'm watching out who I interact with so that I don't potentially expose them to something that, you know, I myself don't really care if I get it because I can beat it. But they may not be able to based on their situation, nor could some of the folks that I serve through work be able to do that. So I don't know. I mean, I think I guess I would say we don't have to rush it. I mean, not that I think it's going to be funny by any means. I think we're going to see this thing ebb and flow over the next several months. I think things are going to loosen, then they're going to tighten, then they're going to loosen again, then shit's going to hit the fan, and then we're going to go back to some sort of form one way or another. So I guess, I don't know. I mean, I think this is an opportunity for us to see what and how we could do it differently than what it was before, just because that's what was comfortable and easier and whatever. So.
Well, one thing to point out is that we're able to do these meetings simply because of the emergency declaration under normal circumstances and because of the pandemic. So right now, under state statute, there isn't going to be a new normal. So unless we're under an emergency declaration, that's the only way that we can hold remote meetings. It does provide, if we can work out the logistics on it, a hybrid meeting. But once that emergency declaration is done, we have no choice. We will be back to a normal meeting. We will not be able to provide for this type of a hybrid meeting situation unless statute changes.
Let me ask on the topic of the emergency declaration. I'm assuming our city's emergency declaration goes away once the governor gives away his. No.
No, it was part of a basis for rationale, but it's a declared local emergency, so it remains in place until the council basically ends it.
So, and I don't know how that process actually goes. If they just give up the emergency declaration, or is that something that our council votes on? Okay.
Yeah, so you declare the initial emergency, but then the council extended it beyond 3 days.
Right.
And the way that it is written is it's authorized until a majority of the council essentially ends it.
So, and once we do that, because I mean, eventually we're going to be doing that. And I think that we need to have the discussion as to what that looks like when we're actually going to do that, but that's probably not for today. My understanding, you're right, that once we end that declaration, we do have, the Zoom option goes away.
We are provided under the terms of the pandemic. The resolution kind of provides the documentation and the clarity of decision, the rationale for being able to do it. But yes, once the COVID crisis ends, meetings will be back to normal. We can still choose to do social distancing. We can choose to wear masks. We can choose to do those types of things. But at that point, having remote attendance at meetings by council members is not an option anymore.
Okay.
Is it still going to be an option for the public to attend remotely? Or that's something that you're not recommending pursuing?
We don't have the technology really set up to be able to do that easily. You need to have the ability for the whole council to see the person that's interacting. You need to have the ability for those people that are interacting remotely to be able to see the council. You also need to have the ability for the audience that's here and participating normally at, let's say, the podium, for them to also be seen by the council and the people that are here remotely. Is it technologically possible? Potentially, yes. We're talking several, multiple additional laptops and setting it up. It adds a level of complexity that we would not recommend. We occasionally struggle with the more simplistic model that we have here currently. Is it possible? Yeah. I mean, we're your staff. We'll figure out whatever you tell us we need to figure out. Just give us the financial resources to do so. So a hybrid meeting is possible. I do know cities that are doing hybrids in the interim. They've moved back to opening up the meetings to the public, their council, or the majority of their council is attending, and then they're also doing a hybrid element to that as well. We would have to figure out how we would make that happen. I'll be honest, I'm not sure we have all the equipment available to us that we would need to make that happen at this point in time, but we might in a few weeks.
And so we do have to be able to see the person speaking. We can't just hear them speaking.
They could call in, and they could listen to the council. I mean, we have the advantage that we're doing it video. You can do it audio only. But in an ideal world, if you're truly going to participate, you would want everybody to be able to see who's talking on all portions. It's not an absolute necessity, but we would try and move towards that ideal. That was what the council directed.
So, I want to meet in person. I was wanting to meet in person from day one. Obviously, there's good reasons why we didn't. I think right now we're kind of in that position where we have choice, where we can meet virtually, we can come in person. I kind of like that. I would ideally like all of us here. I think it makes for a smoother meeting and it makes for good discussions. You get a lot of eye contact with people that you miss when you're in a virtual meeting. That said, I've served with Josh for the entire time I've been on the council. Josh and I go back and forth on a lot of different things, and we're always respectful debates, but I respect the heck out of anything he says. And if Josh Berg is saying we could be rushing things just a hair, I'd be willing to listen and continue in this format for at least another meeting. But I do think it's something that, until we go back to normal, should be a regular, just a staple on our agenda until we are all in agreement on that.
I agree with you. That's why I asked what his perspective was on it, just because in the healthcare industry, so everybody here is in it more on a day-to-day basis besides our law enforcement.
My next door neighbor's a nurse, and I mean, we have about, I don't know, I would say half of our population is either nurses or law enforcement officers. And so they're good sources of information. And my neighbor has told me repeatedly, this is just going to get worse, Things are opening up too fast. And I'm of the nature that people should be free to make their own decisions. I also think we should be respectful of those decisions. And I'm hearing Josh clearly that he thinks he's making the personal decision for his family and for those he works with. And out of respect for that, I think we ought to accommodate it and continue further and give people the option to join us virtually.
Well, and I appreciate everything too, and I fully respect the majority of the council. So if and when everything ends and we go back, I mean, I'll be there. That's not an issue. So I'm not going to hold out like Delvin Cook or anything else. It's going to be I'll be back there working with everybody too in person as needed. I think, and we'll all adjust. And I mean, I'm the one that goes shopping for our family and does all the protocols. Our family, they don't go out for a variety of different reasons. So I can certainly make do with whatever you guys want to. So it's not just all about me or anything like that. So I appreciate that you even considering it. And then again, just even having this discussion, I appreciate it.
Is anyone opposed to continuing as is for another meeting and then keeping this as a regular agenda item? I don't see anyone opposed.
Okay, then that's what we will continue to do, and I will give that guidance to my staff that work with the other commissions and committees.
This was a good discussion.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Okay, next item, Public Works. We actually have Corey on the call.
I am actually here.
Corey.
You know what? I'm actually here, and I'm not asking for anything. I'm just here.
Good to see you, Corey.
Does anybody? Oh, actually, I did forget. The new trucks are here. Just the cab and chassis. They'll go to the upfitter in July, August, and hopefully have them back before winter starts.
Overall, I mean, any issues with Public Works and as it pertains to any safety protocols or anything like that? I know you guys are kind of.
Nope, we've been good, no issues. Everything's been smooth sailing. Very busy now that spring and summer are here. But no, things are good.
You staffed okay?
I always have more, but no, we're good.
One thing I'll say for Corey, I think Tom mentioned in a council update an issue with a recent development. There's an issue with roads, I guess we'll just call it that. When I was talking to Tom, he mentioned that Corey actually coming to the site and providing some opinions was extremely helpful. So Corey, you more than just keep our city look nice, so I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. So if anyone has any questions, I'm here.
Anyone have any questions?
Is that our new baseball field behind here?
No, this is where I would like to go, and it's a softball field, and I'm not there, so.
I agree.
Well, we're doing this virtual thing. We could accommodate that.
Right.
All right, thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
Chief, it's police time.
Thank you very much. If I may have a little latitude, if it pleases the council, just have a little bit of a statement to throw some court terms in there. Just have a few words that I'd like to say, and I think it's very appropriate and very timely right now. On May 30th of this last month, tragedy took place very close to us. A tragedy that ended up going all the way around the world. This tragedy, this incident, was no way indicative of modern policing in our state, in our culture, anywhere in the United States. This is not LE, this is not law enforcement. This was the very definition of a rogue officer. This was a very extremely rare incident using a terrible tactic that has not been used, taught anywhere in decades. In my 25 years of service to the citizens of this state, I have not seen such an irreverence for life. I was beside myself. A core principle of law enforcement is the sanctity of life for all of us. As a 19-year use of force instructor, teaching officers tactics to keep themselves safe and to effect rest, I have never taught such a tactic in the thing that I saw on that day. I can speak for myself, my fellow chiefs of all of Scott County that met this morning were aghast by what happened. With that said, I would ask you all and anyone who's out there not to villainize our profession as a whole and view the situation that happened May 30th for what it was. A sick man committing a crime for which I personally hope he spends a long time in jail. Our profession has been devastated. I know our community supports us immensely. We've got nothing but emails and praises and people bringing gifts to our doors and gift baskets and telling us they appreciate us a ton. I personally have been in situations in my life where I've been very close to death protecting people. And it sickens me that around this country, over 5 officers have been murdered directly as a result of this incident. And I would just ask that as we go through this, when you're talking with your friends, when you're at your barbecues, your parties, you tell people that we cannot demonize all law enforcement based on the actions of one person. That's a core value of our community, and morals, church ethically, is that we treat everybody with respect, and we don't judge a whole group of people by the color of their skin, by their race, by their religion, or what they do. Don't judge all of us by the actions of this one madman. And everybody knows my passion, I hope, for this profession and my dedication to it and what I've given my life to. And just, we need to stop treating everybody in law enforcement the same way just because of this one person. What we do here, I think we do right. I do not feel there's systemic racism in our profession in Minnesota. I can only speak for Minnesota. I don't law enforcement any other place. And what the legislature and what everybody wants to do to capitalize on this isn't right. Our profession as a whole is outstanding. Citizens need us, and if we gut or take away the rights of officers to protect themselves and to protect citizens, we're all going to be a lot worse off for it. So I just wanted to say those words to you and to assure you as our city representatives that we do not teach those tactics. We do not allow those tactics to go on. And as long as I'm the chief of police here, that will never happen here in this community. And our officers stick up for everybody. And if that means pulling another officer off that may not know they're doing something, they will do that. Everybody has the power and the authority to protect life, no matter how that looks. So it was important to me. I know I have a report out there. I'll take questions if you have anything on the report, but this has affected the entire world, this one incident in our backyard, and it is no way, shape, or form of law enforcement that I've ever seen. And I'm appalled, and I wanted you all to know that. So I'm open for questions, but it's important for all of you and our citizens to know that will never happen.
One question I have, what's morale like at the PD?
Our PD
Yeah.
is the way it's always been. We know our citizens value us and cherish us. And today we're out playing basketball with a group of kids at the basketball court. I've had Josh's family in my squad car. You know, we get the appreciation here.
By choice, by the way.
What's that?
Choice.
We were in the back of your squad car by choice.
By choice.
I had follow-up questions on that.
Yeah, showing them the community, showing them the cars. But here's what I ask. Gordon is an incredible person for our department. He's our police chaplain. He's been praying for us. He's been praying. I have many friends who are Minneapolis police officers. That department has had 25 officers walk off the job within a week of that. And these are not bad officers. They're officers that feel that it's too dangerous to work there. Their community doesn't respect them. And they've walked off the job. And my friend that works there, I tried to hire him away from Minneapolis because he's such a good guy and he's devastated. And just pray for the police officers that don't work in environments as wonderful as ours. And they work in the worst areas that they can work in. My friend took a brick to the shoulder, and he was saying how lucky he was that he took a brick to the shoulder, because there's other officers who couldn't go back to work because they took bricks in the neck, bricks in the head, all top cocktails near them where they were burned. Tons of injuries, hundreds of injuries to these police officers because of one reckless act. And my hat's off to them, but I would ask for prayers. Keep them in your minds because they still go out there every day. I heard today that at my chief's meeting that some of the officers that were down there worked 110 hours of overtime in those 2 weeks. That's on top of the 80 hours that they normally work. So they worked 190 hours, just straight going. But there was no one else to replace them. They needed to stand on a line to try to protect that community. That I tell you, there's no more respect than I can give for someone who will protect a community that doesn't want them. And they protect those because they know there are people out there that do want them there, and they go to work in the horrific conditions. So I didn't mean to go that far, take that long, but it's just keep that in perspective, that this was one act by a reckless rogue officer who I have not heard one officer ever stand up for it. And he didn't wreck just his life, he wrecked 3 other officers' lives. 2 of them were on the job 4 days that just started serving to try to serve their community, and now they're in prison, they're in jail.
And of course, took a life in the process.
No. So just I'm open for questions ever, phone calls. Some have reached out, and I appreciate that. I'm a big, I think, a cheerleader for professional policing, and we're all sickened by what happened, and please don't judge us all by this one action.
You said something, actually, you had been talking about how the community, I think this goes back to a code enforcement conversation I think you and I had a couple weeks back. And maybe it wasn't exact code enforcement, it doesn't really matter, but you used a phrase that, you know, this police department in Elko New Market has put so much time and energy and effort into building up the relationship with the community. And when you go around, when you drive around town, I mean, it's hard to even imagine it sometimes that just like 25 miles north or whatever it is, 30 miles north, it's a completely different world. I think we're really lucky to live in Elko New Market. We're lucky to live in the fourth safest community in the state of the country. State. We're lucky to have the law enforcement officers that we have. So, yeah, certainly have your back whenever needed. So, anyone else have any questions or comments for the chief?
Of course, I just want to say, as we all, I appreciate you guys, and I can faithfully and truthfully say that I 100% trust you and all the officers, 100%. So that's a lot.
Thank you. We really do appreciate it. And that's the key, right? Is we all feel blessed that we get to work for this community and that we get to do what we do. And that's why I don't mind doing those little things, because we're just blessed to be and have this community behind us, but it's a two-way street. And I think the word you're talking about is social capital, right? We've been making those deposits in the bank with our community, and the point is to never have to make a withdrawal, never have to explain bad behavior, do something bad, and take that capital out. So I think especially since the formation of the new department, we've been trying to make deposits in that. So,
can I ask you a question on the report as well?
Yeah.
I see 34 ordinance violation calls.
Yes.
34.
34. So
it's kind of a lot.
Yes. So we've had, I think I put in there 9 of those were ATV, golf cart, visuals. It's coexisting with Renee, if she's still online, their effort for the summer ordinance deals as well. We're trying to work on those little quality of life issues we talked about. So we've been out there, it's summer, grass is growing and growing quick, and we've had a lot of rain, so that's impacted. Some of those have been grass as well, but yeah, that's part of our job, and we know it's a goal for the city to improve our aesthetics of our city and keep up property values, and we're trying to be a part of that.
It had me, the code enforcement piece kind of just had me thinking over the past week. I mean, when your officers are going out on calls on things like law enforcement, code enforcement, which are potentially high anxiety, I guess we'll call it, issues for those that are having the police show up. Have you seen any change in the way that people are approaching you or responding to those calls when law enforcement shows up?
No, it's been very consistent. I mean, we recognize it for what it is. We understand that it's not fun having a police officer come to your house and point out flaws and ordinance violations, but it's our job. I mean, where somebody has to do it, otherwise you just kind of fall apart, and that's what we don't want to get. And that's why that community value-based policing is so important, because when you ignore those types of things, those little quality of life issues, it erodes everything. And when you keep up on it and keep ahead of that, that's where you keep your community well or healthy, I think.
I agree. Okay, thanks, Chief. You're welcome. Anything for fire?
Nope.
Rich, you got anything for engineering?
I'm going to retroactively yield my time to Brady. I think anything he had to say is far more important. If you have a burning question you must have answered, I'll stand for it. Otherwise, I would just as soon move on.
Anyone have any burning questions for Rich? Josh, you got anything? No. All right. All right. Thanks, Rich. community development.
Oh, I will echo what Rich just said. Do you have any questions for me?
It's just a great way of saying I don't want to talk. So it's awesome.
Glad I could help.
Parks Commission, is Mark still on?
Yep.
Yep.
I'm on now. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Good. Nothing to add to the Parks and Rec update unless you have a question. I did want to make sure everybody understood that the baseball season, softball season has been canceled. We're still hoping to work with them to have a couple of instructional Saturdays, baseball and softball, maybe late September, early October. We'll just, as everybody's mentioned, we'll just have to see how it goes. So I'll answer any other questions you have on the update, and then we can move to the capital outlay plan.
Amanda, either Josh? Yeah, no questions, so let's go.
Okay, cool. Tom, if you want to kick it off, and then I'll chime in here in a few minutes.
So as council's aware, within our budget, we currently have a line for capital purchases and projects for parks within the capital outlay portion of the budget. Historically, that's been a single line item and just a reserve of dollars that we budget to be able to fund projects. And quite honestly, that was a necessity over time. As Mark has pointed out in past reports, the last decade has really been going through the existing parks, which were suffering from being outdated, not meeting current safety protocols, and a certain level of deferred maintenance and investment. And there needed to be a great deal of flexibility as to how that was going to be approached and changing priorities. We've now reached a point in the process where two things have happened. One, we've gotten to a large degree things kind of up to snuff. We're actually starting that cycle again of going back to some of those early parks and starting to do some of the work on those. And the Parks Commission has also put a lot of work in and really has a vision, actually fairly well identified what their planned projects are over the next several years. And so what Mark's presenting tonight is really what that plan is over the next 5 years. And we would expect that this will translate into a more detailed or expanded Parks capital outlay portion of the budget. So it would look more similar to, let's say, Corey's budget with regards to purchasing equipment, et cetera. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mark for presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. It's a short presentation. I got one slide there for you. Just a little background. The current vision for the Parks Commission since we started about 2008 has been to upgrade and maximize use of the city's existing park and expand the city's paved trail system primarily. So this vision, by the end of 2020, we spent somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.3 million on implementing, adding trails, pieces of trails rather, and upgrading existing parks. We've reached a point now where in 2020, each park has been upgraded once, and we're back at the beginning, which is Woodcrest, which was the first park I did when I got here. We really appreciate the increase in the capital outlay over the last couple of years. I think somebody would remember that we started at about 25,000 here about 4 or 5 years ago when we started this, but we're up to 40 now. And it's very helpful to have that kind of money available, as you'll see as we walk through this. And also, I think the recent bond for paved trails has really helped us create that trail spine that really you can go from one end of starting at Eagle View Elementary all the way to Peach Hill Park on trails or sidewalks as well too. So our job now is basically to kind of go off those that basic spine with additional trail segments. The addition of the new part-time recreational specialist will really help us expand our recreational programming in the future. So the Parks Commission just wanted to mention that we really appreciate the help you've given us as well too. So now let's just take a quick look at that capital outlay plan, and a lot of the stuff I have in my update is probably in there as well too. So let's just start with 2020. This is our biggest year in quite some time. The hockey rink, Rowena Pond lighting and pad is going to get started here probably August, September. The Rowena full court pond basketball full court, we'll purchase that and install the two basketball hoops next year, of course, because we'll probably be near the end of the year when we get the hockey rink built. So we'll be using that in the winter, and then of course we'll buy the basketball hoops in 2021. Most of you have been over there and taken a look at the relocation of the T-ball baseball field over there as well too. In a way, it's they could have played T-ball over there this fall, or excuse me, this summer, but it really works to our advantage to be able to have that field available. Excuse me, the field not being used, because then of course we're not confined in when we get started on the hockey rink over there as well too. And Rich and Corey, if he's still around, can chime in on that. Progress looks pretty good there, and we're making headway there as well too. The Windrose 8 Woodcrest Trail Link, that is paid primarily for from our grant we got from the SMSC here last year, and they allowed us to continue it till this year. We're waiting to get that paved here in the next couple of weeks. East Hill Trail Link, same thing. The swing sets over at old Elko City Hall have already been replaced. They're just curing at this point. They'll be ready to go here on Monday, and we'll pull off the tape. We've got we have an accelerator swing and a 10-seat spinning, if you will, piece of equipment. And so we're trying to do something a little bit different for each park here as well. Next year, as you can see, when you walk down to the bottom there, you'll see our next renovation of Woodcrest 2022. Then we build a new park, or start one anyway, in Boulder Heights Park. We've got the Wagner Park half court repair coming up in 2024, and then we begin renovating Little Windrose Park. I spelled that wrong, I'm sorry. And so that's what it looks like over the next couple of years. We'll just continue our current rehabbing of each one of the parks with new equipment, and try and make it a little bit different experience so people can go to different parks and get different playground experiences as well. You see our funding here, and in terms of the total, we've got $28,000 worth of grant revenue. We've been pretty successful in getting grants. $28,000 obviously represents about 12% of what we need to do for our projects in 2020. A little charitable gambling revenue that we've been saving for this moment, so to speak. And then what remains of the park dedication funds that we have to date is $100,114, and of course the existing amount of reserves that we had in there now, which has enabled us to be able to do it. So essentially, you can look at the 2021, 2022, 3, 4, and 5, and that's what we got on the docket so far. The only one that hasn't been approved yet is the phase 2 of the skate park equipment. If you recall, when we put them in, we started this 2 years ago with the new equipment. We wanted to see if it was as silent as they said it would be before we bought additional equipment, and to finish out the skate park renovation. And I think, as everybody knows, it's even those who thought it wouldn't work, or it would be too noisy anyway, have said that it has been very quiet as well for them too. So Parks Commission is currently looking at the numbers there, but that's how it plans out. The equipment would be bought essentially a down payment, 2021, and installed in spring, 2022. And then the same thing goes for the other piece of equipment there. So we spread it out a little bit, and we split it, and we're able to get everything to fit in. So essentially, it's we've been using existing funding sources here. I have not projected any park dedication funds because I'm not sure we'll get them, and it may be. What you see there is park dedication funds tends to be obviously a big part of our revenue, and but I haven't, so to speak, based anything we're doing up above on any park dedication funds at all. If we get them, then as I noted there's a number of things we can work on in the memo as well. Wagner Park will be the next big project that we have here in 2026 likely. So as I said before, on the downside, there are really no paved trail projects planned in the capital outlay here. We've reached a point where we've got some rather large sections of paved trails that would be nice to fill in, like Xerxes Avenue. So we'll be working obviously with developers and making sure that we use some of that development that we hope to come to fill in those paved trail segments. So that's one of the downsides. The dollar amount for each of park rehab project, in my opinion, could be greater. We're spending $50,000 in 2022. We spent $45,000 in 2008 when we redid Woodcrest. So you can see we haven't been able to really add much to the amount that we can spend on renovating the parks. And our general process, I think you know, is basically to do an RFP, an all-inclusive RFP, and send it to the different playground companies. And that 50,000 would include everything except for the wood fiber. It's the installation, it's the sales tax, it's the freight. Everything has to be in there, and that's the all-inclusive budget. And so generally, how we do that is we then do have the RFPs, do the presentation to the neighborhood, put it online, and let people basically vote for which one they think would work best there. Now, of course, Parks Commission and Council don't necessarily have to take that one, but they've been pretty good. Been right on with Whispering Hills, which is the last one we did here a few years ago. $80,000 budgeted for the new park in Boulder Heights is essentially going to be phase one. We haven't budgeted for phase two, but that's an example of something that if more park dedication funds come in, well, then we'll get that scheduled as well too. There are no dollars for future community park included in this capital outlay plan, and I think you can look at both ends of the spectrum. A lot of cities will just bond for it when it comes up. Others will save it and pay cash for it, and most will do a little bit of both. They'll save some money and then bond for the rest, or they'll purchase dollars, and they'll purchase the land that's necessary for it out of contingency funds or something else. But just so you know, there's nothing planned there. But of course, we don't expect to be building one before 2025 to 30, somewhere in there, and depending on how fast we grow. So one of the issues is how do we want to save for it? Do we want to save for part of it? Do we want to just pay for it when it comes along, and that kind of thing? So those are the things that the Parks Commission kind of has been discussing. But the bottom line here is everything you see on there for what we're doing right now, we can afford to do, and we can continue to upgrade our current parks and on schedule and on time. So that's just a little background, and happy to answer questions or listen to comments or um, see if I can help you understand or have anything else that you have on those slides as well too.
Thanks, Mark. Does anyone have any questions for Mark? So,
No, I guess I would just echo the downside, and you hit it. I mean, what I don't see in there is like trail renovation, maintenance of existing trails, and does that get funded somewhere different or from something else?
We have repairs and maintenance budget, Councilmember, and basically we budget somewhere around $8,000 a year for maintaining that equipment. I think one of the reasons I like to do it every year and a half, do a new one and try and keep it to 10 years is that the equipment then is not generally going to be, shall I say, outmoded, outdated, and the rest. When we first came here and we looked at the parks, of course, you know, and did the assessments. And at that point, I was a certified playground inspector. And so we would go through, and the first thing was basically to upgrade the equipment so that it met safety standards. Most of the equipment both cities had at the time didn't meet standards. And then along the way, we did, you know, when you guys did bonding here not too long ago, we added some additional money for trails as well too, and that helped us as well. So we've taken we've taken the opportunity to be, shall I say, proactive in trying to do that, and I think we've been pretty successful in using what we got. But you're right, I can build a much nicer playground and park at Woodcrest if it's 80,000 and not 50,000. That's just simple facts. But right now, as you see as we go along here, we get a little low here in 2023, 2025, which makes it hard to do without you know, grants or the rest. So we'll keep trying on that. But you're right.
I think financially, the takeaways here, just to answer Josh's question, we do have a line item within the budget specifically for trail and sidewalk replacement. Because all of those trails and sidewalks were installed within the same relatively narrow span, I think long-term we're going to be running into some of the same issues that we're running into with roads, where a lot of stuff needs to be done in a narrow window. One of the project staff is currently working on, as part of our discussions related to future capital improvement plan discussions, is whether or not those dollars are going to be sufficient when we really need to start doing work on trails. That aside, I think the big takeaway from this, as you can see, given any other significant revenue additions, this plan pretty much taps out the fund within the 5-year, our available funds within the 5-year period. But as you notice, the funds are down below $10,000. To replenish, to be able to even do a park at $40,000, you're looking to be able to do something of any significance a few years before you can do anything else. The current funding level that we're at really is to maintain, and occasionally as opportunity presents itself, to enhance the existing system. We simply are not funded to do any enhancements to the existing system, whether it be trails or the parks themselves, without other resources. Even with the trail system, any significant improvements or expansions of our trail system, we're funded through bonding and in association with other projects. So this is just kind of where we're at, and just kind of a background as we start getting into capital improvement planning and we start having discussions about that and discussions for financing. We're not specifically recommending anything. You know, Mark will always tell you, as he just did, and you know, greater resources is always appreciated, but right now we're kind of at a status quo with regards to our system. And I guess we're looking for two things. One, any questions? And then two, is there anything in here that you see that is just out of line or off the mark with regards to what the plan is coming into this current budget cycle?
I think one other point I should make is we've been very lucky with donations as well too. As you know, we've had a number of two swinging seats over at Wagner Park were donated. We've had another 5 if you will, seats either made by Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts along the trails, or again, people have paid for as a donation. We also work closely with the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. So, for example, over the 4th of July weekend, one of the Boy Scouts going for his Eagle Scout is going to be rebuilding the area around the flag over at Wagner Park Shelter, and we're working with a Girl Scout on the installation of the little libraries that we have as well too. So, and then later on, we'll even be doing a grass planting, for bees with another Girl Scout too. So we work a lot with the volunteer labor there, and we've been fortunate to have a good relationship with the Girl Scout and Boy Scout troops around here, and the citizens have donated plenty as well too.
Mark, one question kind of off topic from the outlay plan, but you and I have talked a number of times about farmers markets, and you had sent me an email last month regarding an idea for a farmers market. I don't know if you want to kind of share what you kind of had in mind with the rest of the company. Or not, that's cool. Mark, can you hear me? I don't think Mark can hear me. All right.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time hearing.
That's okay. We'll tackle it at another meeting. No big deal. Anyone else have questions or comments?
All right, let's try it this way. Go ahead.
I think we're good, Mark. I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
I'm just not hearing you very close. Okay, thanks.
Thanks. All right, CCEC.
It's on Tuesday.
Meeting is on Tuesday. All right. Scale. Scale is executive committee was last week. The general scale membership meeting is tomorrow. Executive meetings are kind of just planning for the membership, basically. And tomorrow should be fun. We have legislators from throughout Scott County joining us for a little Q&A. I think they have some tight time schedules, so I don't know that it's going to be a super long. I want to say we have about 40 minutes. Also, law enforcement. Brady, who's the officer that you mentioned?
Chief Steve Frazier.
Chief Steve Frazier is going to talk to Scale and have some comments on, or some thoughts, and maybe answer some questions regarding just nature of policing during this current time. I think is that gist of it.
Yeah, and he'll also be talking about what happened up in Minneapolis and what if something happens here. Are we able to mobilize officers to protect our assets, protect City Hall, protect the fire department, police department from what's happening? So it's gonna be a good topic for you guys.
Yeah, and it's also the year in review scale presentation as well. But they're all Zoom meetings, so if you can make it, you can sit in your pajamas and drink coffee or whatever you want to do.
Where can I find the meeting? It's just on the website and it's not up to date.
I can forward you an email, or actually, Tom, do you have it that you can forward up there?
Yep.
Okay. Perfect. Anything from service delivery?
No, service delivery is actually on Monday.
Yeah. By transit plan steering committee. We don't have anyone appointed that I do. I think I asked this
I've been directed to serve as an ambassador for the council, and they have not had a meeting since last January. So.
Okay. MBTA.
Meetings next week.
Okay. I-35.
We had a meeting this morning. Congresswoman Angie Craig was there, as Commissioner Wolf had mentioned. Tom had forwarded out the legislative updates from Rob. I think a lot of stuff is still up in the air just based on where this special session is going to go, if they get into any of the bonding stuff, anything, or if it's going to be dominated by the other topics of the day. So we'll see how that all turns out. I did volunteer with Matt Johnson from Savage, Commissioner Wolf, and Ryan Peterson from Burnsville to be on the budget committee looking at the I-35 budget policy stuff. So more to come on that.
Nice. Okay. Concludes reports. So on to discussion by council.
There was one item that was placed on the agenda for discussion by council, and that's the League of Minnesota Cities and the Metro Cities Policy Committee representation. It's that time of year again where both of those organizations which represent cities and represent us at the legislature are putting together their member committees to identify what the legislative priorities are going to be for 2021. It's a I don't say a lengthy process, but it's over the course of a few months and multiple meetings. These groups will take a look at their particular policy areas. They'll take a look at the existing policies, whether or not there's any proposed changes to those. They will make recommendations then to the respective boards of those organizations, and they'll ultimately be presented to the membership. In the past, I have participated in some of those committees on items of particular interest to the city, and Councilmember Berg has participated as well. Former Mayor Crawford has also participated. I would recommend that if you have the ability, the time, and interest, and there are items of interest to the city, that you do participate for a variety of reasons. One, the world belongs to those who show up. If you are there and you are participating, you do have influence, because it's basically those who, there's no interview process to be on the committees. You simply just say, hey, I want to participate, and you participate. The other element is that you get opportunities to develop relationships with both the Metro Cities and lead staff, which are important. It can play off for obvious reasons. And the last part is you get to make connections with individuals that represent other communities, whether they are senior staff or whether they're elected or appointed officials that are representing cities. And those are useful as well. What I did is forwarded to council prior to this meeting links to the current policies for both organizations, and a listing of the various committees, with the hope that the council would review those. And I think the intent of the discussion tonight is twofold. One, to identify if there's any particular policy areas that the council would like to engage in with regard, changes to existing policy, either enhancements or changes to existing policies. And then two, do we want to have representation going to those committees that basically getting the blessing of the council so that they can go and feel that they're speaking with the full force and backing of the council as they represent the city. So with that, I'll turn over to the mayor to start the discussion.
All right. We'll just start. Any thoughts? Laid it out nicely. Yeah, speaking just me personally, I'm stretched about as thin as I can. As much as I'd love to participate in more of this sort of thing, I just can't, don't have the bandwidth to use a Tom Terry term. Josh, I know this is an area of interest of you, for you. Do you have any items that you wanted to address, or?
No, to be very frank, I haven't taken the time to look through them yet. The nice thing is, I don't think it starts until July. So it's July, August, and September are the typical meeting timeframes. Just to put it in perspective for those that haven't gone, July is the come, get the high level overview, get everybody's initial thoughts on topics that they really want to address, and then you dig into them in August. Staff then crafts different language or works with the cities that propose them, and then you come back and vote on everything in September. So we do have time to take a peek at things, come to that July meeting, propose if we have any city-specific stuff, and then if anything were to come up at that July one, then we still have time to bring it back to council, get it on a general discussion topic or whatever, see if we have a position, and then bring it back to the August and September timeframe as well. So I plan to attend at least 2 of them for each. It makes it a lot easier with them being virtual too. So there is no driving up to St. Paul. So there's no travel time, which will be beautiful. And I always tend to have fun when it comes to certain topics in some of these committees. So we'll see if the same crew is back that are pushing for some of the things, and see if we get a little bit more momentum on different things. But as with last year, I mean, I know some of the controversial topics were like the affordable housing and some different things like that. You know, just for me, I am very careful to wear both hats. So if I were to get into any side conversation, it's me speaking for myself and or whatever. And if it comes to a vote, I mean, I will certainly be sure to bring it back to the council to get opinion. And I abstained from several votes last year because I didn't have enough info to do what I felt was right, but I also didn't run it by you guys first. So I was able to just kind of shut up and listen. And yeah. Yeah,
I think I think you hit the nail on the head as to what really the nature of this conversation really kind of is, what sort of flexibility do we have as council members to go out and participate in some of these things, voice our opinions, are we speaking, how much should we come back to with council before speaking? I want to say it was a few years ago we had this conversation. It was basically a completely different council at that time. I know how I feel. I mean, I trust each one of you to make the decisions that you feel is best when you're out there representing the city. That's just my take. I don't know. Does anyone feel stronger feelings or different feelings on this?
No, I would agree.
Okay.
I haven't read through everything that's there, but I would be interested in attending.
Okay.
And Amanda or whoever too, I mean, I'll certainly share which ones I plan to attend, and then make sure that either, I mean, if we both attend because we're both interested, sweet, or multiple of us do, but or if we can spread out and try to tackle a few different ones so we have representation and stuff at some of the ones that Bob used to go to, and then I would make sure not to attend some of those or whatever. So.
Okay. Perfect. Well, yeah, since it's July is kind of when these start. We could always discuss further at our next council meeting, and at the same time, if there's more to discuss on it. So.
Would the council like me to place this on the agenda for the next meeting, just as a kind of circle back after people have had more time to take a look at the current policies, see if there's specific items they want to run by the council, and then also.
Doesn't hurt to have.
I think it would be helpful. I think it would be good.
Okay.
And to Tom's point too, this is one where they can't not allow me to participate. They don't have to put me on the boards. They don't have to whatever, but I get to show up.
No more applications for Josh.
Okay. Any further discussion by council? Okay, we have a closed meeting coming up. So at this time, I will have to take motions to close this meeting.
No, at this point, Mr. Mayor, yeah, if you'll look on your screen, there's a statement that you would need to read in order to close the meeting.
The council will now move to a closed meeting for the annual performance evaluation of city administrator Tom Perry, pursuant to Minnesota statute 13D.05 sub 3A. I hate reading up statutes. All right, so we're closing the meeting.
Yeah, and as this is the last, we've now finished with the public portion of the meeting. The Zoom meeting will now be ending. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, this evening for coming.
Thank you.